an iHeart radio station. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, including facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Whichever works best for you is the easiest way for you to get on and able to either see, interact, comment, etc. Again, whatever is the way you kind of want to do it. That's the right place for you to be as we continue our mission to have live local talk radio here in the borderland and talk about the things affecting us right here at home, because no one else is really going to have that conversation the way we do, and already demonstrating that. Calvin Williams chiming in, or waving technically over there on the social media. Hello to you as well, dropping those likes and reacts already, including Monica Cervantes and Calvin Williams, of course. So, again, we appreciate those because it helps with all those algorithmic things on Brabanda there as well, of course, with the rock on side sitting with me here today. And we're going to be hearing both on that when it comes to continuing on that segment that we got going on. What's the deal with? But let me set it up for a minute here, because we got a lot to get into today, including a whole lot of topics and some answers, but also more questions going on with that whole situation, kind of from just south of Brownsville, Matamoros, with the Americans who were attacked and 2 now found to be killed. And that has a lot of implications and definitely goes straight into, beyond the tragedy of the event itself, conversations involving border security, involving terrorism declarations, and a whole lot more. So, diving into at least some of what some of these situations are, what some of the conversations, what some of the pushback is, particularly some very interesting comments even out already this week from AMLO, the Mexican president, and on just all of this and further perspectives there, as well as in the What's the Deal with segment. Going to be delving into one of the things kind of behind and not maybe directly contributing, but a factor that played into the incident that did occur there and unfolded and is still kind of unfolding in the aftermath there in Matamoros, with medical tourism, kind of what that looks like in our area specifically. So what's the deal with medical tourism in Mexico? And then, of course, we got a lot of other stuff very locally based going on today, including a new analysis of the numbers when it comes to the end of the contract for current and outgoing city manager Tommy Gonzalez, as well as some new people stepping up, one at the very least for now, to take over that top spot for county law enforcement, the sheriff's office, as we, of course, have had Sheriff Richard Wiles announce his pending retirement, end of the season, end of the session isn't the right way either, end of his term of office. There you go. As we are, and that's a lot of that turnover been happening and a lot of upheaval in a lot of top spots in our areas we've been discussing, as we also have Austin Redfern also chiming in. Hey, everybody, and good afternoon to you as well. Do appreciate it. So, yeah, a lot to get to here today. So, for those unfamiliar, what we're talking about in that situation that has been unfolding after that attack early this week on at least 4 Americans, though there was potentially more of them involved, but one decided not to. 2 Americans kidnapped, and Mexico found dead and 2 found alive. The surviving ones have been returned and are getting medical treatment in Texas in the nearby area. And the bodies, at least as of last note, of those that were killed, still remaining in Mexican custody pending investigation into it. So this has led to, of course, a lot of questions as we continue to, of course, swirl around in our specific area on cartels, their involvement, their actions, violence, extortion. Pick a bad activity and you could probably end up applying it there. Not a whole lot of love lost between me and those particular organizations. Let me just give you the Cliff Notes version there. But when it comes to the idea of particularly this declaration as terrorist organizations, I would say that the incidents have been going on, have been kind of ramping this up to 11, just to that whole next level. And as those conversations go on, I got to say the idea of it being, well, as was a conversation we had earlier this week with one of our callers on the possibility how this could look, what this might be. The part that I was kind of hoping for would be cooperation, would be interaction, and not just kind of unilateral parts of it. And yeah, I guess I don't see that's a path towards that, at least easily, immediately. And this is based largely on statements that have come out of, Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador, the president of Mexico, AMLO, shortly, and I'm not going to totally say affectionately in my case, though some seem to use it that way. Some statements he has made during press briefings, even since the advent of that situation in Matamoros this week, rejecting any ideas the U.S. could, quote unquote, impose itself in Mexico, and suggested, as has often come up in this case, that if, essentially Americans, particularly Republican lawmakers and congresspersons, are concerned about it, that they should focus on the drug consumption aspect of it, which, sure, that is a thing and that is a concern. The fact that we are a huge demand for all these things in this country has an impact, and yet focusing on the suppliers would also seem to make a whole lot of sense to me, saying that, oh, no, only worry about the end of the pipeline as opposed to the rest of the pipeline. Yeah, I'm not totally in favor of that. So some of the other specific comments he made is noted by, among other things, Border Report on this when asked about essentially that possibility of there being enforcement, cross-national enforcement, and very specifically terrorist designations. What AMLO had to say, again, in Daily News Conference on Monday, is noted by a Border Report here. AMLO dismissed proposals by Republican U.S. lawmakers to use the U.S. military to fight drug cartels in Mexico as, quote, pure propaganda, end quote. It's been further noted by sources I trust on this idea that AMLO not really seeming to willing to play ball with this. Even beyond this, Senior Morena party officials have stated that the Mexican government would not allow a violation of its national sovereignty in the U.S. if the U.S. were to attempt a cross-border raid on cartel leadership. So pushing back on this, and of course the whole concept, idea, focus on national sovereignty has been one of the evolving things coming out of this. I've sometimes and still kind of stand by the idea of AMLO as, okay, maybe not exactly a loose cannon, but a cannon that occasionally gets loose and goes on unpredictable trajectories. Let's just put it that way, including his essentially assertions of soft coups him because of journalism outlets, among other things, not agreeing with him or not being on board with him. So, yeah, there's a whole lot other going on with that personage, though, just in the short term and in the meantime, at least in terms of any of these being joint efforts, if they are to come to fruition, which, again, given the pressure happening on this side, and just as a couple other notes that come along with this, there are, of course, travel warnings that have already been in place, particularly for, frankly, a lot of areas of northern Mexico, particularly, Matamoros, now being on par with, I do believe, the same kind of ratings that are used in also fun and friendly places like Syria. Yeah, not good. So for spring breakers, if you're well, if anyone here in our audience is doing it, the only one that is spring breaking, among other things, yeah, maybe don't. Particularly, again, those northern Mexico areas, those places that are seeing a lot of cartel activity at the moment. And so we're going to talk further about that whole situation involving, again, what happened to Matamoros, and even how some of the similar types of situations, maybe not exactly attacks, but one of the reasons that the people that were involved in this were reportedly traveling to that area are also present in our region as well. So we'll kind of break that down and what medical tourism is getting into. But a couple of things I want to mention before we hit that first break and get into that what's the deal with segment is that, okay, spoiler alerts, Tommy Gonzalez is looking at a $1 million payout, nearly, just about according to our news partners over at KFOX 14, according to open records requests that they have now filed as of this week, or at least received as of this week, the information from, just giving an idea of, man, the guy had a lot of sick leave and vacation time. Let me just put it that way. Also, new possible candidates or those wanting to run for the office for the now outgoing or soon to be, well, soon-ish, next couple of years, really, retired sheriff, as well as some interesting action coming out of the state legislature, including some potential use of that record surplus being actually maybe put into budget issues, and also the first bill being passed out of the Senate, as noted by the Texas Tribune here, a bipartisan effort to close teen gun loophole. on what is certain amounts of information that are reported to the federal firearms background check system. Some already a conversation going on that. So a whole lot to get into here today. Another jam-packed one for you, as is more often than not the case. So again, comments coming online, and we'll keep those going and even popping them up when it comes to the rest of this, as well as phone calls a little bit later in the program, as we usually do. In any case, stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Again, comments, calls, all that good stuff as we progress through the program. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
No accidents on El Paso freeways right now, just some slow traffic on the I-10 eastbound, less than a 5-minute delay from Trans Mountain to the 54 Patriot. A stalled semi blocking the right shoulder, I-10 eastbound at the Zaragoza exit, and a stalled vehicle on I-10 westbound at Red. And police are still working an injury accident eastbound Pelicano at George Dieter. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Our American Stories.
How do you save someone from a snake bite? Well, you milk a snake, of course. We'll have the story of a man who does. Be sure to catch this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Paid for by government.com.
The 1878 to 1921 Morgan silver dollar, a true American classic and one of the most iconic silver dollar coins in history. It's been 100 years since the last Morgan silver dollar coin was struck for circulation, and now, for a limited time only, full pound bags of original U.S. government struck Morgan dollars are being released to the public. That's right, you can own a full pound of 1878 to 1921 classic American Morgan silver dollar coins, all in very good collector condition with fully visible dates and mint marks, guaranteed. Call 1-800-473-1745 now to secure collector-grade U.S. Morgan silver dollars by the pound, struck during the Wild West and the Gilded Age. Plus, receive a bonus American Collector's Pack valued at over $25, free with every order. Call 1-800-473-1745 now to secure your full pound bag of Morgan silver dollar coins before they are gone. 1-800-473-1745. That's 1-800-473-1745.
Attend the El Paso Gun Show this weekend, March 11th and 12th at the Forum Ballroom, 3800 Maddox, El Paso, Texas. See dealers selling the finest in modern guns, custom knives, ammo, scopes, rifles, shotguns, and much more. Buy, sell, and trade at the El Paso Gun Show this weekend, March 11th and 12th at the Forum Ballroom, 3800 Maddox, El Paso, Texas. Do not miss the El Paso Gun Show this weekend, March 11th and 12th.
Research shows listeners prefer a personalized experience. So to help you remember, Liberty Mutual customizes your home insurance. We personalized this ad for Amber, who really misses boy bands from the 90s.
Hey girl, I'm the cute one, here to tell you how Liberty Mutual customizes your home insurance so you only pay for what you need.
I'm the heartthrob. The only thing I love more than you is saving. And I'm the other boy in the band everyone forgot about. Just happy to be here.
Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
If you see something, why do you say something?
I see safe for my friends.
For my community.
For everyone here. We all have something worth protecting, a why that unifies us. Report suspicious activity to local authorities. If you see something, say something.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Welcome back to Talk El Paso, airing on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we are up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. However you're tuning in, whatever way works best for you, that's the best place for you to be. And in order to hear what we got going on, interact with it if you so choose. We'll pop up those comments as relevant during this segment, as of course the rest of the show. Phone lines a little bit later, as we usually do. But in any case, yeah, we got a lot to talk about here today. So joining me now, as we have been introducing these segments with 690 producer Amber Banda, what's the deal with blank segments? And so today we're going to be taking kind of a little bit of a journey on this one, a conversation we have been having since, of course, what we talked about on Monday on this program with the kidnapping and attack that happened on those U.S. citizens. Some of the developing details coming out of it today is that actually 2 have been found and returned to Texas. 2 were killed. The remains still in Mexico, pending investigation, but will be released back to the United States. And some of the details coming out about this that we have been discussing, Amber, have been that a case of mistaken identity, all these kind of things going on with the incident itself, but that the major reason for the individuals that came from actually the Carolinas, as it was, right? Was it North or South Carolina?
I believe they had North Carolina license plates, but they were coming from South Carolina.
Okay.
And they were staying in Texas until they were going to go the next day into the woman, I believe, was going to go get a tummy tuck.
So that brings up the kind of major point that we're going to be talking about today of medical tourism. So you can call this one segment, what's the deal with medical tourism, particularly here on the border? So a couple more points just about this incident as well. It may have been at least some U.S. officials are saying anyway, this may have been a case of mistaken identity, that it may have actually been that along with an innocent Mexican bystander that was also killed in this encounter. Don't want to miss that at all, but that it may have been mistaken, the Americans mistaken for a Haitian drug smuggler, so targeted because of that. And there's been some, I got to say, rather explicit video that has been circulating online of kind of the aftermath of the attack as they were being the victims being loaded up to be dragged away from the site.
Not a very nice video to watch. I wouldn't recommend it. But one article I did read stated that it could have been either a mistaken identity, that they were part of a Haitian drug group, or it could have been that there was 2 cartels fighting with each other and they were just caught in the crossfire. So we don't really know for sure what was going on. Of course, we're still getting more information about that, but that's something that I did read.
Yeah, and one thing that has come out is that U.S. officials were not particularly involved in this, at least according to CNN here in this particular case, saying that, American investigators were not on the ground in this. And that's another conversation we'll be having on what is going on with some of these transnational issues and conversations and efforts that have been posited, including possible terrorism designations that I'm sure this will contribute to. But again, the whole focus and the reason that these individuals that got caught up on this were in that region, having gone to Brownsville and then crossed over to Matamoros, was for medical tourism. And that is something that absolutely exists here in our region. In fact, there's a whole lot of it, and it's quite a focus. If you have the ability to, if you just search what is medical tourism, the entire first page will be either articles about or mostly websites promoting, facilitating, giving information on, etc., this concept of medical tourism, which is, okay, I mean, I think there's maybe familiarity with a lot of people in this community of, okay, maybe some stuff, some services, probably people talk to me all the time about, dental services just south of the border. So that may be familiar to some, but frankly, it's on a whole different dimension than I even understood.
So I think the predominant reason people go over to Mexico is for cosmetic surgeries, dental visits. I happened to look up the cost because I myself am going to be getting a mini tummy tuck soon here in the United States.
Yeah, okay.
I have actually myself gone to Mexico. I think it was in 2007, 2008 for a cosmetic procedure.
Okay.
Because of the lower cost, I didn't feel unsafe when I went. I mean, I was in my early 20s. It was me and my cousin. We walked across and back without any issues. But when I did Google the cost of a tummy tuck over in Mexico, it says here somewhere between $2,500 and $4,500, which is, at least half of what it would cost here. So, I mean, that can be very enticing, the price, and I do know family that go over there to get their dental procedures. And not only that, but I know people that go over there, for medicine. The cost of medicine is a lot less expensive, probably more accessible in some areas as well.
I will say that, okay, I haven't done that exactly, but some of my family members, as we were getting into 2020 and stuff not being available, one that had respiratory issues, asthma, essentially, there was a specific inhaler that they had been getting prescribed here in the U.S. and that it was just not available. But they had a friend who said, oh, yeah, no, I see that all the time on the store shelves in Juarez. Do you want me to grab you one? It just kind of came up in the conversation. And so that happened. So that's the closest like personal experience I've really had with it. When it comes to the idea of the medication, but really medical tourism is big business. And we've even had some local reporting going on, specifically referencing a border report here on how much there has been growth in this. There's been a whole lot that has seen a market percentage increase even just as of last year. And it's expected to continue strong into this year when it comes to the demand for it.
I know the pandemic kind of put a dampener in that, but
Sure.
one article I read, it had said that there was some 1.2 million American citizens traveling to Mexico for elective medical treatment. And, it kind of slowed down during the pandemic and it's slowly going back up and it's almost to where it was pre-pandemic now.
Yeah, at least one of the ones that we had discussed here is that just like even the hotel occupancy when it came to these kind of things, because we had discussed this kind of during the midst of the pandemic and particularly the very serious situations that existed in Ciudad Juarez of there being overflow and like people in the streets during like the height of the infections going on. Some of those facilities we discussed at those point in times were specifically, boutique and medical tourism focused hospitals and hotels, kind of one in the same and hand in hand. So this has now continued going back up. And some of the things that you were pointing out is that just the occupancy of these hotels kind of related to this has been, like in the below 50% overall. And now we're well above that into like the 75, 80% of occupancy, even just as of last year, right?
Right. And something else that you had mentioned that I didn't even realize because we live here in a border town is that was, these American citizens that traveled from South Carolina to Mexico to get this procedure done. That's actual real traveling just to get a procedure done. I mean, they crossed various state lines just to get there. And here, I mean, we kind of maybe take it for granted because we live right next door. We could throw a rock into Juarez.
Yeah.
And so I didn't even
probably hit it from here if I really put some juice
maybe
on
if
it.
I kicked it. I don't know about my throwing arm, but
Yeah, probably
maybe
not.
a good patada.
we're maybe with like a sling or something. Anyway, yeah. So the actual like tourism aspect of it, I mean, for us, it's for particularly those that are comfortable with the whole binational nature of our community, just walking across, the traveler cards, those kind of things. But the people actually like traveling outside of the region, outside of our broadcast area, at the very least, to then come here and then either go straight over to Juarez or stay here and then do a day trip over there. Those kind of things. We are seeing an increasing amount of this, and even kind of focuses on this. Like it is being encouraged by, Mexican authorities in general, but those in Juarez specifically.
They try to make it very enticing. I know there's places that will, not only the low cost, but there's places that will actually bus you to and from across the border. I've been told that some of these hospitals, they speak English very well. They're very luxurious. They're very nice. They're very accommodating. I mean, because Mexico, not even just with medical procedures, but a lot of places are very tourist friendly. That's a big part of the money that they receive. And so I know that there's an article I read that Mexico's kind of worried. Well, the way that this is making them look, it might put a dampen now for people going to get cosmetic procedures or even dental procedures. I have a feeling, I mean, I don't know, this is just, my personal speculation, people will still go over for the lower cost of medicine. They'll still go over because I've heard that Mexican, places have better, maybe better supplements. So, but I guess we'll have to see what's going to happen as far as people not wanting to go over for different procedures, medical procedures.
I mean, there's also the thing I feel necessary to mention here that we are talking about literally a different country and therefore different policies, procedures, laws, and standards in place. So this is none of this should be construed as necessarily encouraging or saying, oh, you should definitely consider this. Like anytime you're talking about a medical procedure, anything seriously medical, it's incumbent upon you to do your due diligence, work with people that you trust, because anyone can screw it up if they're not doing it right. But particularly since we're talking about you're not under the protections of the U.S. there anymore, though it is interesting to note that at least some of these references about how, particularly when it comes to dental work, some of those things and certain clinics can still apply for U.S. insurance when it is working as well. So that's kind of showing how this has been further integrated and the draw there. But again, caveat emptor, buyer beware. Make sure you know what you're getting into if this is something that you are getting into.
Because you also have to think a lot of these procedures require follow-up procedures. My procedure is scheduled for May 13th, in New Mexico. And I have a follow-up on the 15th to make sure everything went okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to consider that too. Or you're going to be going back to get follow-up care. So that's something to consider as well if you're going to go get a medical procedure done.
Yeah. And so, of course, medical tourism is nothing new. It's existed in our area and even around the world. I've heard references that like South Korea is one of the cosmetic surgery capitals of the world. They have been marketing themselves this way. And so the fact that, among other things, Juarez, and there's even some other interesting references, further referencing a border report here on that actually southern going north tourism, consular tourism as it's known, has been a big boom in Juarez as well, including a quote directly from it about article out February 5th, medical and quote unquote consular tourism picks up in Juarez. The line I'm referencing here, about halfway down to it, saying that the consulate in Juarez leads the entire Western Hemisphere in the number of U.S. immigrant visas issued, and again referred to there as consular tourism. So this is something that Juarez has specifically, and kind of Chihuahua State overall has been, and of course Mexico as a whole has also been kind of trying to position itself to. So as the further investigations and also responses to the whole situation, the designations potentially of cartels as terrorist organizations, as we've already been talking about, all of these things are going to be interplay in here with this. So we'll see if this continues, but that's kind of a interesting way we wanted to analyze what is going on with medical tourism, not just the, again, day trip across, I can get something cheaper or simpler over in Juarez, but the people actually traveling to this area in order to take advantage of it. So something we want to talk about and kind of break down here today.
Well, again, thank you for having me on, Andrew. And I want to finish with a joke, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Maybe on a lighter note.
Fair enough.
If you know the answer, just pretend you don't. Okay. What is the difference between death and taxes?
They're both said to be inevitable.
Congress doesn't meet every year to make death worse.
Two other argument to be made there. But in any case, again, Amber Banda, producer here with 690, joining us. Appreciate you talking with us and kind of breaking down one of these more complex topics here on both interplays with modern and going news and medical tourism here today.
Thank you. Thank you all.
And with that, we're going to go ahead and take that next break. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
I'm Fidel Moreno Mesa with your CBS 4 News update. The city leaders who voted to terminate Tommy Gonzalez's contract still won't say why. CBS 4 looked back at what they said when they were running for office. Both Brian Kennedy and Joe Molinat have a section on their campaign websites outlining their stance on the city manager position and the contract extensions. Kennedy said city council was not holding Gonzalez accountable for the way he distributed city money. He was also critical of Gonzalez's previous contract extensions. Molinat also said during his campaign that he had his own issues with the city manager position, saying he did not like the way the city of El Paso operated under the city manager type of government. To an update on a rollover crash that happened in Santa Teresa Monday night. The crash sent 9 people to the hospital, most in serious condition, including one who had to be flown to UMC. Border Patrol told us their Office of Professional Responsibility is investigating the crash. The department issued a statement, but then asked to retract the statement. For more news headlines, head to our website at cbs4local.com.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery. After seeing our first 80-degree day of the year, we're going to see a milder one for tonight. Most areas around El Paso getting down into the lower 50s. Some lower 40s, though, for you in Las Cruces. So a light jacket or jacket for tomorrow morning. Not quite as warm for tomorrow afternoon. Lower to mid-70s for Thursday, and then back around 81 for your Friday. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by Bank of America. Bank of America has powerful digital solutions for local and global businesses, so you can make every move matter. Visit bankofamerica.com/banking for business to learn more. Bank of America, N.A. Copyright 2023.
Hi guys, it's Mark. Are you struggling with erectile dysfunction? Did you know that a major medical breakthrough is now available and it isn't a pill? Today, Wednesday, March 8th, we're running a one-day special you won't want to miss out on. Northbrook Medical Clinic uses the most powerful form of wave therapy. This is a technology clinically shown to repair blood vessels and improve blood flow. It's backed by 60 clinical studies, including from Cambridge. If you're ready to regain that spark in the bedroom, today is your day. Call us now and you'll qualify for the assessment and ultrasound totally free. You'll also get a gift that can produce rapid and powerful results in the bedroom in minutes. You're going to love that one, guys. Trust me. And today only, we're offering 5 tune-up treatments to our patients free. This is an unprecedented offer worth hundreds of dollars, but call today and qualify totally free. Call 915-529-9000. That's 915-529-9000. Guys, put a stop to your erectile dysfunction and get your life back. Call Northbrook Medical Clinic now to qualify. This offer ends today, Wednesday, 915-529-9000.
For the local issues and discussion you won't get anywhere else, turn to Talk El Paso, weekdays at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM, brought to you in part by the El Paso Community Foundation. Sound off on what matters to you, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., and let's talk El Paso.
Hey guys, it's Lisa Booth. It's been over a year since Russia invaded Ukraine. So what's Putin's endgame? Rebecca Koffler wrote the book on it, Putin's Playbook, and she joins me on The Truth with Lisa Booth. Listen to The Truth with Lisa Booth every Monday and Thursday, but you can listen throughout the week on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This report is sponsored by the Truth with Lisa Booth podcast.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day.
I don't watch television, so I get all my news from you.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. A lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
That's just one adoption story that started at a shelter. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we are up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv at Andrew J. Polk. Again, whatever works for you, the right place for you to be is the best place and the easiest one for y'all to see the show, interact with it, at the very least hear us, know what's going on. We do have those video components that we like. We appreciate it. If you want to see my mug, the very expensive sign behind me, those kind of things. Yeah, that's we do have graphics, but don't worry, for our radio audience, we always describe them, let you know. So it's not you better be online, because if you're driving, please don't be online. If you're the passenger, sure, go for it, but you better actually be a passenger and not like just in the passenger seat and driving from the other side. I know that sounds like a joke, but people have done it. And for those that missed the joke, Austin Redfern was asking to close out the segment, the last one there. Ed Clore did post it. Appreciate it. But what's the difference between death and taxes? The answer being Congress doesn't meet twice a year to make death worse. Though there's an argument to be had there, I do contend. But in any case, appreciate those chiming in, particularly those dropping those likes and reacts, including Ed Clore, Flauco Jimenez, James Holmes, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, and Calvin Williams. Help us with all those algorithmic things. But then a lot of commentary on the issue that we're talking about there, including Javier Maldonado saying, I have not been attacked in Mexico. However, I've not been there lately. Well, more than 10 years. Yeah, that's about it for me as well. I actually had a chance to go through during the construction process, that actual consulates that we were mentioning as part of that segment there, because it's construction. It was, if I remember correctly, quite a lot of processing bays. So it's not any surprise to me that it is one of the major centers, again, in the Western Hemisphere, according to Border Report on that, for immigrant visas. So that doesn't surprise me particularly. And some other questions coming in, including from Richard DeMille asking, I wonder if gastric bypass surgery there would be cheaper here or there. Essentially cheaper over there. That's the answer that we're coming up with. And part of the draw, if it was more expensive, you would have to have some kind of other incentive coming along with it, I would imagine. So yeah, more expensive on this side of the border than over in Juarez. And in fact, that's one of the things. Again, literally just Google like Juarez medical tourism, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, at least 7, just on the front page of Google, saying that there are all these guides and destination hotels. Like literally, there's a medical tourism destination hotel. And just the way these things are listed and marketed totally that way is very interesting to me, though. There's also some not so generous takes on that. John Browson saying a Planet Fitness membership only costs $10.85 a month. Sure, I could understand that, though. Again, it's been pretty prevalent in our community for a long time, the idea of doing this. There's a couple of things that at least we mentioned in the announcement post that I wanted to make sure we got to here, including new numbers out today on what the actual contract amount given to Tommy Gonzalez upon his departure from the position of the city manager for the city of El Paso would be. According to open records requests filed by our news partners over there at KFOX 14, and of course, personnel matters, all that good stuff is certainly a part of it. That his annual salary about $405,000. He is eligible under his current contract agreement if terminated without good cause, which is the clause that has, of course, been exercised. He will be provided a severance payment in an amount equal to the amount of 12 months of Gonzalez's base salary, but also eligible to receive any unused vacation and sick leave and his automobile allowance to the date of termination. So that $405,000 amount, factor that in. And then again, according to the open records request that, again, our news partners at KFOX 14 have filed as of this week, is a balance of about, let's just call it just over 1,000 hours of vacation and 940 hours of sick leave remaining. So that's, they actually had calculations getting pretty close there. And this is pretty close to what some of the estimations were about it being like maybe 900,000. So this pretty well bears out, including questions, as further noted by our news partners there, about being a $1 million decision, being more than $900,000. So with the last date being June 28th, at least according to the current action, that's why I'm willing to still say kind of give it a range of, late June, early July when it comes to that. Very, very interesting and about what we expected, but seeing the firm numbers are interesting to me anyway. And then also, as we've talking about a lot of this upheaval and turnover with a lot of top jobs in both law enforcement, legal issues, and management, we have now a candidate that has announced late Tuesday night he will be running for sheriff. That is current El Paso County Sheriff's Office Commander Ryan Urrutia. He has announced that, of course, after current Sheriff Richard Wallace has announced his intention to retire when his term ends at the end of 2024. And according to a lot of implications and a lot of responses to the fact that he is going to retire. And it's interesting to note that Wiles is actually listed as the treasurer of Urrutia's campaign so far. He has an event today for officially making the announcement of at least the public part of it there. So one other thing I wanted to mention, or a couple more things when it comes to the Texas legislature before we are already getting due for that next break right now, is that the Texas legislature is starting to actually circle in on legislation moving through. We have the first bill that has now been passed out of the Texas Senate, as noted by the Texas Tribune, a bipartisan effort to close a teen gun loophole. Subtitled in this first bill passed this session, the Texas Senate sought to ensure juvenile mental health hospitalizations are reported to the federal firearm background check system. So being referred to again in the headline there as a loophole. Basically, it allows gun sales to people gun sales are allowed to people who were involuntarily hospitalized for mental illness between the ages of 16 and 18. So, of course, it has now passed the Senate. We'll go through the rest of the process. And this kind of comes into the question of, okay, what information actually goes into that, the NICS system, the National Instant Criminal Background Check. That is a part of any gun purchase I've ever made. Anyway, it's a very important thing, and questions about what actually, if you garbage in, garbage out is a shorthand phrase for it. If you're not putting good information in the system, you're not going to get good information out of it. So this is one of those things, and it was actually filed by State Senator Joan Huffman, Republican out of the Houston area, and this would put Texas in, noted further, in compliance with federal law, and clarify that courts must report court-ordered mental health services and admissions to healthcare facilities due to a mental illness or intellectual disability. Again, still needs to go through the House of Representatives and then the governor's desk. And given that this has been, and particularly school safety, an emergency item this session, there is a amount of expectation that could be had from that. But one question that had come up earlier, or a comment anyway, towards the top of the show from Javier Maldonado about being concerned about another background check with this. This technically plays into the existing one, but again, dealing with the system that is then providing the information that goes into that instant criminal background check. One more thing, of course, from the Texas legislature, that there is about $5 billion out of that historic 30 some odd billion dollars that we've been talking about going into all of this session, now being floated for potentially being used for certain departmental raises, but also flood prevention and border operations, but then also maybe investments into things such as broadband and other water infrastructure. But that one may end up going to the voters as opposed to just being budget items. So those are a few of the important things that are percolating through our state legislature at this point here, where of course we continuing to keep up on that as we see this continue at its increasingly fever pitch throughout the rest of this year. Again, there is the specter of special sessions, particularly if any of those emergency items that Governor Greg Abbott identified, particularly during the State of the State speech, which of course we carried here on News Radio 690 KTSM, don't get done. He's very unlikely to let those just pass or slide by, is my reading of that situation. But we'll see how that actually progresses and keep our eye on that. So with that, let's go ahead and take that next break of this hour and go ahead and open up those phone lines as we usually do at this point during the program. So if you want to get on the line, add your 2 cents. That number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
A stalled semi is blocking the right shoulder on the 10 eastbound at the Zaragoza exit. An accident reported Gateway West at Yarborough. Slow traffic on the 54 southbound Stan Roberts down to Kenworthy. 16-minute delays there. And eastbound Montana is starting to slow down. Yarborough out to Desert Meadows is a 7-minute delay. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Jackson Hewitt. When it comes to your tax refund, think biggest. As in, Jackson Hewitt guarantees your biggest refund or your money back, plus $100. Get to Jackson Hewitt for your biggest refund, guaranteed.
I'm Martin Hoke, the inventor of Navage Nasal Care, and I love Navage. I've told you about how your nose is the body's air filter, that Navage's powered suction will help flush out allergens, viruses, mucus, and germs, and that Navage will help you breathe better. But what do other people say about Navage? Like Josh, quote, "After walking around my whole life being a mouth breather, I was excited to try Navage. I read the directions carefully, pressed the button, and oh my gosh, what a sensation. So much mucus, so much crud, but oh sweet, merciful air, I can finally breathe you through my nose. Never have I ever taken such an amazing breath in my life. This is a life changer," unquote. He's one of over 100,000 online reviews praising Navage, the all-natural solution trusted by over 3 million people to help you breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier without drugs. Navage is available at Walmart, CVS, Walgreens, Target, Rite Aid, and online. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E, clean nose, healthy life.
Paid for by government.com.
The 1878 to 1921 Morgan silver dollar, a true American classic and one of the most iconic silver dollar coins in history. It's been 100 years since the last Morgan silver dollar coin was struck for circulation, and now, for a limited time only, full pound bags of original U.S. government struck Morgan dollars are being released to the public. That's right, you can own a full pound of 1878 to 1921 classic American Morgan silver dollar coins, all in very good collector condition with fully visible dates and mint marks, guaranteed. Call 1-800-473-1745 now to secure collector-grade U.S. Morgan silver dollars by the pound, struck during the Wild West and the Gilded Age. Plus, receive a bonus American Collector's Pack valued at over $25, free with every order. Call 1-800-473-1745 now to secure your full pound bag of Morgan silver dollar coins before they are gone. 1-800-473-1745. That's 1-800-473-1745.
We'll have the story of the pistol-packing Underground Railroad conductor Harriet Tubman. Be sure to catch this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
The Good Feed Store.
improving people's lives 2 feet at a time.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in. However you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days. A lot of ways to interact with the show, of course, particularly at this point during the program. That phone number, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back up and working in full, it does look like today. Full up at the moment, for that matter, but keep that number handy in case you want to get on, add your 2 cents later on. Again, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. So a lot of different conversation going on, including us in Redfern saying, I know folks that go to Juarez to visit relatives and do some shopping. They tell me that nothing has changed with reference to the violence, that the authorities don't mention it because they don't want to lose tourism dollars, and heads are still rolling, literally, from what I've heard going on to say. And given the implications, let's just say I think that there's a critical mass that ends up happening, even if there is pushback coming from the leadership nationally in Mexico on this issue or on the cross-border transnational implications of it. I don't know if that's going to be something that can be ignored, particularly given how much coverage has happened with that incident still, again, the aftermath unfolding down there in Matamoros. But let's go ahead and get those phone lines now. We do have James in the Northeast on the line with us here right now. James, thanks for joining us.
Hey, how are you guys doing?
Doing all right there. What's on your mind?
Well, what's on my mind is, like rumors, for example, when the cartel were fighting in Juarez, and everyone around the United States thought that it was here in El Paso.
Oh, sure.
And we're like, oh, it's unsafe to go to El Paso and all that. Well, anyways, I have a primo that's from Matamoros in the Brownsville area, the familia of his. And basically, the rumors over there, are saying that that they were probably buying drugs to take it to North Carolina, but they're not going to go and say, yes, we're buying drugs, but they were using going and doing medical stuff as a cover-up. Well, that's the rumors over there in the Matamoros area. So anyways,
Okay.
And yeah. So, I mean, those rumors, I don't know if it's true or whatever, but sounds to me, I mean, when my primo told me, he's like, oh, it sounds about right. They're not just going to go and target tourists, or stuff like that. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's still a lot of questions being had there. I guess I've heard similar things, though. It's, again, worth noting, as we mentioned, that there has not been U.S. federal authorities involved in that investigation as of yet. So I do see this, whatever the situation was, the outcome of it with 2 Americans dead is not going to be much dithering about when it comes to that potential issue, and just adding more fuel to the fire that has been this whole conversation about, this transnational terrorist designations, all of these potentials, to see this, again, a lot more pressure being put on that issue and that possibility. As again, the background of all of this, there's a whole lot more border enforcement. We've got that May 11th date, I do believe, for the sunsetting of the federal pandemic requirements and restrictions, therefore having more impact potentially on immigration systems. And so given that this is, this has been long simmering, of course, but that this is just the pressure cooker keeps getting more pressure on it, I got to say that I don't think this is going to get lost. This is going to be probably one of the things that gets talked about even more, regardless of the situation.
Exactly. But, like I was telling my primo, I'm like, that's why, like, it's scary to take my family to New York and go see the Statue of Liberty, because you never know, you're going to get mugged over there in New York. So, and like, it happens everywhere, every single day, every minute of the day. So you don't know what's going to happen, and this, since they claimed it was for medical reasons, that's why they were going, but apparently it was from them, from my primo, saying that it was just a cover up, just so that way they could bring the drugs over. What do you call those little pills? what do you tell me? The fentanyls or something like that?
I mean, there's
Anyway.
a lot of different little pills, but yeah, that's certainly one of them.
Yeah, so it's like, so, there's going to be rumors lying around until they do an investigation and they find out, hey, these guys were the, drug dealers dealing with these guys and something went wrong and that's why they killed them, But we don't know. We'll find out, right?
Yeah. And so, yeah, I'm going to kind of stay away from speculation personally until that. I appreciate your perspective on it and what's being said kind of in that area because, I mean, again, the very graphic video that I saw, not necessarily of the attack itself, it's been increasingly online, so I'm not going to share a link to it, but there are many outlets that have some analysis of it. It was like someone from inside a building that was recording the aftermath of the actual attack and the people just being, I don't even want to describe it, it's that graphic, but being loaded into the back of the truck, those that were either obviously no longer amongst the living kind of situation. So it was bad.
They dealt with the wrong people over there at Matamoros, and now they suffered the biggest consequence was, death. So,
yeah.
So I don't know. We'll find out. Let's see what comes up with that. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, like I say, it's dangerous over there. It's dangerous over here in the United States. I mean, I don't know if you would want to walk around Compton at night, in the middle of the night. So it's like, it's dangerous everywhere. And like I say, I mean, it happens every day, but it's just a high profile thing that happens.
Absolutely.
Because they're saying that they went for medical cosmetic thing, which we don't know if it's true. Maybe it was just a cover up. But anyways, okay. Well, sorry for taking your time, guys, and thank you for hearing me out.
Oh, no, sure thing. Thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
Okay, bye.
All right, and with that, that'll actually take us through that next break of this hour right now. We got more calls in the line, but if you want to get on there as well, remember that phone number is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Be back after this break in the top of the hour news here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
A stalled semi is blocking the right shoulder on the 10 eastbound at the Zaragoza exit. An accident reported Gateway West at Yarborough. Slow traffic on the 54 southbound Stan Roberts down to Kenworthy. 16-minute delays there. And eastbound Montana is starting to slow down. Yarborough out to Desert Meadows is a 7-minute delay. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Let's face it, credit cards are pretty much a necessity.
New tires for the car? Oh, here's my card.
I order takeout, here's my card. And most of us just accept the high interest rates credit cards charge as a necessary evil.
What are you going to do?
Get a low fixed rate credit card consolidation loan from Lightstream from $5,000 to $100,000 and pay off those credit card balances. Apply online and you could get your money as soon as the day you apply. The average credit card company charges over 19% APR. But with Lightstream, you can get a fixed rate as low as 7.99% APR with autopay and excellent credit.
Now I can pay off my high-interest credit cards and save money with a much lower rate.
Apply today at lightstream.com/radio and get an additional interest rate discount. That's lightstream.com/radio. Lightstream.com/radio.
Subject to credit approval. Rates range from 7.99% APR to 23.99% APR and includes 0.5% autopay discount. Lowest rate requires excellent credit. Terms and conditions apply and offers are subject to change without notice. Visit lightstream.com/radio for more information.
Children who grow up in poverty are part of a destructive cycle. At Child Fund International, we find this unacceptable. In 25 countries, we are vigorously fighting poverty and improving the lives of children and their families. Learn more at childfund.org.
When is the best time to talk to your family about staying in touch during a disaster? When floodwaters reach your door? When wildfires are engulfing the edge of your neighborhood? Or an earthquake is destroying buildings? When a tornado is tearing through town? Or a hurricane strikes? Or is the best time perhaps today? During a disaster, you may not be able to stay in touch with your family or friends as easily as you think. And it's not always as simple as using your cell phone. That's why now is the time to take action. Go to ready.gov/communicate.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. The president will roll out his budget proposal Thursday in Philadelphia. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre says the budget will include raising the Medicare tax on those making more than $400,000 per year to extend the program for decades. Biden has also called on Congress to quadruple the tax on corporate stock buybacks. However, the plan is likely dead on arrival in Congress. Alec Murdaugh's older brother is speaking out for the first time.
Randy Murdaugh said in his opinion he's not telling the truth. Alec, a prominent and once wealthy South Carolina attorney, was given 2 life sentences for the murders of his wife and youngest son in 2021. Alec's only surviving son, Buster Murdaugh, filed a police report after he said he saw a photo of himself inside of his home published in the New York Post. Police told him officers would add extra patrols outside his home after the incident. I'm Lisa Taylor.
The COVID origins hearing is focusing on what Republicans say was Anthony Fauci's efforts to disprove the lab leak theory. Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan said Dr. Fauci benefited from U.S. taxpayer-funded research at the Chinese Wuhan lab, then later said the lab leak theory was a far-fetched conspiracy.
What was Dr. Fauci doing? He was trying to cover his backside, and everybody knows it.
GOP House subcommittee members said they uncovered new email evidence suggesting Dr. Fauci prompted the drafting of a publication to disprove the Chinese lab leak theory. Democrats say even with the FBI also saying COVID escaped from the Wuhan lab, the evidence is inconclusive. There were slightly fewer job openings to begin the year. That's according to a new report which says there were 10.82 million available positions. That's down by just over 400,000 when compared to December's job openings and labor turnover survey. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt is praising voters for turning down a proposal that would have legalized recreational marijuana in the state. Brian Gann reports.
Oklahoma approved medical marijuana 5 years ago, but yesterday said no to legalizing sales for recreational purposes. Nearly 62% of the voters turned down the measure. The governor says he believes the decision was the best thing to keep kids safe and for the state as a whole. And he went on to say that Oklahoma is a law and order state, and he's committed to protecting Oklahomans.
A fuel spill this morning in Port Washington, New York, is being contained before it reached Manhasset Bay. It happened shortly after 9:30 a.m. after fuel started leaking from a 7,500-gallon tanker truck at Fifth Avenue and Main Street. Fuel did leak into 2 storm drains. Newsday reports the U.S. Coast Guard, State Environmental Conservation Police, and Bay constables were alerted to monitor the bay. The incident happened due to an equipment problem. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is urging President Biden to let tennis star Novak Djokovic into the country to compete in the Miami Open this month. Djokovic hasn't gotten a COVID vaccine.
He poses zero risk to the United States, zero risk to the state of Florida, and zero risk to Miami.
The U.S. currently bans unvaccinated foreigners from entering. The second Peppa Pig theme park in the nation is coming to North Texas. The new theme park will open next year in North Richland Hills, just outside of Fort Worth. The park will feature rides, shows, interactive attractions, and more from the world of Peppa Pig, a British TV show intended for preschoolers. It will be operated by Merlin Entertainments, which also runs Legoland and Sea Life Aquariums. The first Peppa Pig theme park in America opened in Florida last year. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
This report is sponsored by Our American Stories.
We'll have the story of the pistol-packing Underground Railroad conductor Harriet Tubman. Be sure to catch this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today for good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
And now for today's Roblox winter weather alert. iHeartland on Roblox has been walloped by a winter snowstorm. It is a winter wonderland. You can now ice skate at State Farm Park. In State Farm Neighborhood, you can compete in snowball fights, grab a hot cocoa and cookies, and more. There's also special events from your favorite artists and podcasters all month, along with scavenger hunts, exclusive content, and unique items. So enjoy the festive winter weather at iHeartland on Roblox. Head to iHeartRadio.com/iHeartland today.
It only takes a minute to find out if you may have prediabetes, and you can do it at doihaveprediabetes.org. But you're probably not going to, are you? Kids, work, listening to the radio. You're busy, which is great because busy people can't get prediabetes. Oh my, I read that wrong. They can. Should have worn my glasses. So visit doihaveprediabetes.org and take a short test because prediabetes can be reversed.
Brought to you by the Ad Council and its pre-diabetes awareness partners. Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone?
Do flowers have best friends?
I don't know. Hey, look.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv. Andrew J. Polk, a lot of people tuning in, chiming in over there, and we'll be also getting to those phone calls here as well. Of course, that number to dial, full up at the moment, but keep it handy, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. And Talk El Paso brought to you in part by Sunland Park, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Of course, go check them out. They're at 950 Crockett Street, basically just south of I-10 and Sunland Park. Look for the big sign. They got some big flags, some stuff out there, and of course the big deals they got again. Sunland Park, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Find them online. Search that up. Sunland Park, Jeep, Chrysler, Dodge, Ram.net. And a lot of people tuning in, chiming in, including Ida Beza Gardner with the hello, Grokomanda, hello all as well, and more commentary about an interesting one that I hadn't really thought about in all this coverage. Tritosak over on the YouTube channel saying, I'm surprised in the woke time we live in that there's more outrage over the name in the city Matamoros, which literally means kill the Moors. Matamoros. I guess I hadn't thought about it that way, though. Based in, kind of Spanish language origin. I was aware of another city that has had more recent controversy over it. I think it was along the lines of Matajudios. Well, it has since kind of changed its name, or at least trying to get rid of those implications, if you're following along with that. So let's just say there's not necessarily the most analysis of old names and what they mean until it kind of gets brought up. So maybe, but I haven't heard any local efforts on that point when it comes to Matamoros. But of course, we're discussing the incidents and the unfolding there. Still a lot of speculation, of course, but still waiting for even some of the bodies to be returned from that attack of the Americans who were down there. And again, I know the speculation, but for all intents and purposes, medical tourism being at least the stated purpose of the trip down there, and the fact that it exists in our areas and the implications on it are very interesting to me anyway. So again, thanks to Amber for joining me for that segment here today to talk about that, as we're kind of doing that as a recurring series of what's the deal with blank. And so that attack, and also medical tourism as not even just a local phenomenon of people, taking a day trip south of the border, but as an actual industry, and how that has continued to evolve, particularly since restrictions, etc., have been relaxed. Very interesting. But let's get back to those phone lines there right now. Again, that number, keep it handy, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Jerry in the Northwest on the line with us right now. Jerry, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Andrew, for taking my call.
Mm-hmm.
I have some information that is not rumor or speculation or innuendo. It comes from the the Austin American Statesman.
Oh, sure. Mm-hmm.
And there are 5 bills being introduced into the state Senate by State Senator Ronald Guterres on gun control. Okay, the first one of these bills is a ban of expanding bullets. So if you have anything besides the FMJs, full metal jackets, they're going to try to outlaw them. Anything that will expand bigger than its original size, and that doesn't make sense because a lot of hunters use soft point bullets.
Oh, sure.
And hollow points because you want to not just wound the animal, you want it to make it dead when you go out and you hunt, like deer or elk or something. And if you get an FMJ, a full metal jacket, they don't expand, so they go straight through the animal, and it just wounds them. They run off. So that doesn't make sense, and I don't understand how they're going to get that through, but I don't put it past them. Okay, now the second one is a closing of the gun show loophole.
Oh, sure.
What is the gun show loophole?
Oh, if you're actually asking me, I mean, it's that phrase. I mean, the way the phrase is used often is about the idea that kind of leveraging the idea of private sales and therefore going to a gun show and never having to do a background check. Just my interjection here. I have, not frequently, if much at all, but I have bought a firearm at a gun show previously, and I have never not had to go into and do the background check because, I mean, sure, there may be, private sellers, individuals looking to unload one or two here. That hasn't been much my experience, really, seeing much interest from their prices that they end up putting on their firearms as well. So I end up buying from otherwise, stores, businesses, etc., that happen to be at the gun show. So every time I've done that, it has ended up being with a background check when it comes to an actual sale at a gun show. And I think you're referring to there, I think I've got the list that you're kind of going here to be from Senate Bill 1736. It's notable in that part as well, if I'm reading this correctly, that there are exceptions for firearm sales to peace officers and those who are licensed to carry, which is, of course, a provision within Texas that you don't have to do as much with the form if you have that LTC now, the license to carry in Texas. Sure, we have constitutional carry, but that's one of the benefits of that licensure still has in this state.
Yeah, well, the gun show loophole to me is a made-up phrase because there has never been a gun show loophole. You can sell a firearm to individual legally under federal law. So under the FOPA law of 1986, that can be done. So
right.
I don't understand why they're claiming a gun show loophole when it does not exist. Okay, let me go on to the next three because I have more from New Mexico also.
Oh, sure.
Okay, the law on gun storage safety. Okay, now are they going to try to force everybody to store their guns in a certain way or certain type of cabinet? I don't know. And if that happens, and there's a lot of people out here that can't afford to go out and buy those handprint ones where you can just put your hand on and you can get your weapon right away, your gun right away, your firearm. If you need it right away, it's very difficult even sometimes just to have a combination, to do the combination lock when you're not under stress.
Sure.
But when you have somebody trying to break down your door, it makes it 10 times worse. So anyway, I'll go on to the next one. Life without parole for school shooters. And okay, I'll agree with that. If you have a kid goes in and he's shooting up a school or somebody that's shooting up a school, I'll agree with that one. Life without parole. But I would rather see them hung in public, personally. The next one, automatic suspension of law enforcement involved in the shooting of a child.
Right.
Now I'm going to disagree with that completely. Drug and gang members use children as their proxies, basically. They're little soldiers. Somebody under the age of 18, because the courts don't look at the kids that are under age of 18 as able to make good decisions. They're not mature enough to make the decisions, although they're mature enough when they're 5 to decide if they're going to be a female when they're a male or a male when they're a female. I don't understand that part. Anyway, I'll go on. I disagree with that.
Okay.
Then you go into New Mexico one, because I know you're limited on time. They passed a bill in the Senate, which is House Bill 427, would require gun buyers to have a 2-week waiting period before actually getting a gun, a firearm. And I disagree with that also. Now, I understand their motive. They're trying to get people that, are upset with their boyfriend or their girlfriend. But they're just looking at that from one view. They're not looking at it from the other view. The boyfriend is upset with the girlfriend and is very abusive. Why should the female or male, either way, have to wait 2 more weeks to protect themselves? The law enforcement, a quick law enforcement reaction is within 5 minutes.
Sure.
But when seconds count, minutes will kill you. So that's my point of view on it. And it has been sent back to the House in New Mexico for changes. It's called a Change of Life bill. And they are a cooling off period. They're saying for a cooling off period. Well, that doesn't fit every situation. There are a lot of people out there that are still alcoholics or drug dealers that are very jealous, and it doesn't fit those situations. And when they come home and they beat up mommy because supper wasn't warm when they got home after they've been drinking with the boys for 6 hours that evening, that's not good. So,
okay,
I'll leave it there and let other people get on. Thank you, Andrew, for taking my call.
Yeah, sure thing. Thank you for the point and the items you brought up there. I mean, certainly important discussions. I mean, we've had a little bit more focus on New Mexico, I want to say, in recent terms, though. And those items that you're mentioning, just for those playing along at home, I do believe I've had the list here. The ones that you're mentioning there would be not exactly in the order you referenced them, but Senate Bill 1737, 1736, 1740, 1738, and 1739. Again, all Senate bills in those cases. So essentially, if I'm looking at this correctly, 1736 through 1740 being the series and span of bills that are filed on the Texas side of things.
Yeah, with New Mexico citizens, you need to stand up. These are your rights. They don't belong to the politicians. They're your rights. You stand up and you get on the phone with them or the internet. You tell them, no, don't be taking my rights. Well, thank you, Andrew.
Yeah.
You have a good day.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. You have a good one there as well. All right. And with that, we are a bit overtime on this segment. So we're going to go ahead and take that break, and we'll come back and get on more on the phone lines there. So remember that number, if you want to get involved in that manner, is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 eastbound at Cotton Street, a large Freightliner truck is stopped in the right lane, stay to the left to get by. That's causing some slowing. 54 southbound, Stan Roberts to Kenworthy's a 26-minute delay. Slow on Montana Avenue eastbound, Yarborough out to Zaragoza with 7-minute delays. And we get an accident, Van Buren Avenue at North Stevens Street. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Our American Stories.
We'll have the story of the pistol-packing Underground Railroad conductor Harriet Tubman. Be sure to catch this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
With Seagram's Escapes, you can turn a daily chore into a vacation, an ordinary dinner into a lively cookout, your Wednesdays into an early weekend, or any situation into something extraordinary. Seagram's Escapes make happiness happen. Enjoy responsibly. 2023 Seagram Beverage Company, Rochester, New York. Flavored malt beverages.
I'm at risk of having an unplanned pregnancy.
Of becoming a parent too soon.
or making a decision I'll regret later.
But if I do face an unplanned pregnancy, a modern adoption plan will put me in control.
I'll choose my baby's parents. And if I want to be in her life,
I'll get the support I need to make life better for me.
Better for my baby.
Modern adoption plans empower women and create more happy lives. Hear stories of empowerment at modernadoptionplans.org.
This is a special alert to all Americans who own a vehicle with less than 200,000 miles with an auto warranty about to expire or with no warranty coverage at all. Due to a decline in the economy, CarShield is announcing a low-cost month-to-month vehicle protection plan that is now available to the public to save any driver out-of-pocket expenses on future auto repairs. Call now to find out how you can pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. Yes, you heard that correctly. Pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. An open phone line has been established for all drivers to call for a free quick quote. Call 800-989-8906 now. Drivers who are covered will not have to pay for covered repairs again. This protection plan is at an all-time low. Additionally, drivers who activate this vehicle protection today will also receive free roadside assistance, free towing, and car rental options at no additional cost. Call us for your free quick quote today. 800-989-8906. That's 800-989-8906. What do you have to lose? Call 800-989-8906. Again, 800-989-8906.
180 over 111, and I had a stroke. I couldn't speak or walk.
This is high blood pressure. Get back on your plan. Go to loweryourhbp.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association, American Medical Association, and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we are up on these days, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. Got some conversation going on in the comments about a lot of things, including Robert Gable chiming in from the YouTube page saying, "Afternoon, what have I missed?" I've gone through a lot already, but there's also a lot of other conversation going on. And let's just say be careful what you wish for if you're calling out specific potential callers here. But also one conversation that's going on about, hey, I'm on a way to bring up the idea of buy yourself a shooting training system for $100, no bullets, completely safe, save on ammo. Talk to Jody. I think I've heard of similar ones of, this is not an endorsement or anything because I don't have one, but like the Mantis X or similar dry fire practice systems. I've kind of been meaning to look into that because, yeah, ammo's expensive, even for just plinking, like Flaco Jimenez was mentioning. But also, yeah, there's some questions coming up about, yes, there is on our airwaves. You may have heard it in the commercials. The El Paso Gun Show coming up this weekend, March 11th through 12th. This is going to be at the Forum Ballroom at 3800 Maddox. That's basically a little bit east of like Montana and Airway, just go a little bit further along Montana, and you'll run into Maddox. Pretty near like I think it's what is that? Hawkins actually is closer one. Kind of all across from, well, this Maddox goes across from the golf course that's there. Anyway, let's go back to those phone lines here now. Again, that number to call if you're wanting to get on the line is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Eric on the east side here with us right now. Eric, thanks for joining us.
Okay. On the subject of Sheriff Wiles, police unions are inherently criminal organizations of the worst kind that undermine the Constitution of the United States of America that conservatives pretend to care about. Sheriff Wiles' replacement shouldn't have any relationship to the criminal enterprise of our police unions. If people actually care about the rule of law, Constitution, and their equal application, they should oppose police unions and those who run them. Nobody should ever be above the law. Police unions enable, defend, and promote the worst constitutional violating behavior in law enforcement, from police habitually violating Americans' First Amendment free speech rights conservatives pretend to care about, to police brutally beating the crap out of civilians who look at them the wrong way, to police systematically harassing ethnic minorities that conservatives always pretend doesn't happen. To police murdering unarmed American citizens, conservatives always find reasons to justify no matter the circumstances. People like myself who want police and law enforcement to respect the rule of law and constitutional rights of Americans are not anti-police. We are not pro-crime, quite the opposite. Police who violate the law, no matter how big or small, are criminals themselves. Those who truly want equal application of the law are not communists or any other ad hominem logical fallacy you and your fellow right-wing propagandists on this station say we are.
Okay, let's hold up there for a second here. I get that you're opposed to police unions, but when it comes to the replacement of it here, how exactly are you saying that this relates?
There are common sense, oversight, civilian oversight, you guys giving them carte blanche to do whatever they want to continue facilitating the violation of our rights. Like, for example, you not covering, the head of our police union. He was arrested after a 3-year investigation, and you insist on keeping your followers ignorant of that. He was the head of the police union for a decade. And, you want to act like police corruption doesn't exist in this city so that to promote your conservative narrative. And that prevents common sense oversight and transparency that prevents the constitutional rights of Americans from being violated.
Okay, so given the fact that you just brought that up, I'm very curious how it seems that we are trying to keep people ignorant. I mean, if you're going to the whole, you didn't bring this up, therefore you don't want people to know, we do a lot of show selection here. We pick the topics that we think are most relevant and or interesting to the audience here, but we certainly take comments. So if you've been wanting us to talk about this one, you've been welcome to call in the past on this whole point here, but also let's just make it very clear. We do make show selection. There's literally tons of things that we don't end up covering. Most car crashes, most crimes that occur in this area. We're certainly not therefore pro-crime or wanting people to not know about the crimes that are happening. If you're upset because we are not catering specifically to you in our selection here, let's just say I have an interest in keeping the show on the air, and that's part of the reason we do the selection of not every intimate crime, or not just solely catering to you, if that makes at least a little bit of sense.
Well, this was enormous local political news. Ron Martin ran against Sheriff Wiles back in 2020 to run the sheriff's department, and then he was arrested by the sheriff's department and the person who beat him. That's enormous, big-time local political news, and you spent hours and hours talking about Alec Baldwin instead. Like, let's get real. You're trying to cultivate a pro-police state narrative about El Paso's police that harms efforts to protect the constitutional rights of El Pasoans and to have a more accountable police force in our city.
So since you very much like quoting me, I'm going to give you some paraphrase quotes because I don't have my exact transcripts in front of me here, but this is what I've said on the issue when it comes to police and police accountability. I do think a lot of credit is owed to them for the work that they do, but it's also been said that a bad police officer is almost worse than no police officer. In fact, I've heard that from some that are on the police in different law enforcement capacities overall. It's even been stated within our city council. So from whom much is given, much is required. So we should absolutely give a lot of credit to our police, but also hold them to a high standard because we give them a lot of power over us. And that, as just a person, an average citizen, is concerning, because if someone is in that kind of a position of power over you, over me, and are not doing it right, correctly, certainly need to be held to account, because I mean, the phrase, few bad apples, the full phrase of it is a few bad apples spoil the lot. And therefore, it both makes the job of policing more dangerous, more concerning, more difficult at the very least. So I'm certainly in favor of holding them to a high standard, even if I'm not quite sure that's what you are wanting to hear.
No, that's you trying to have your cake and eat it too. I just gave you an example of you excluding stories about big-time police political corruption, and then you also push racist right-wing narratives about those advocating for common-sense police reform and that police respect our constitutional rights, like local grassroots efforts in our community from local BLM chapters.
Okay, I'm going to need you to explain some of those, mental gymnastic jumps that you just did, because even the Russian judge is giving me a confused look right now on that one. So tell you what, give you a second here. Go ahead and explain how me saying that police both deserve credit but should be held accountable is racist. I would love to hear this.
I was specifically referring to your racist right-wing narratives from your echo chamber in regards to Black Lives Matter, and when they're the main grassroots effort holding police accountable in local communities, these local grassroots chapters who are making very specific complaints to about their local police departments, which you've promoted in the past, those racist narratives, and you, again, not covering big-time corruption involving the head of the police union who ran it for a decade. You're trying to have your cake and eat it too.
Okay, I know you love talking about pat lines there, so we're going to keep falling back on this have your cake and eat it too. If you're saying that you can only be anti-police or pro-police, I'm not going to follow you along that idea of it, because think of the idea of how policing, how law enforcement happens in our community is an incredibly important subject. And so making sure that it's done correctly and effectively, I mean, we've had ideas about shortages going on there. And sure, there's a whole conversation about public unions. If you want to kind of delve into that, that certainly has been important and should probably continue on there, because the idea of people lobbying us based on the money that is already being paid for by us, I mean, there's a whole other conversation that goes on there. And certainly corruption is important, but again, we do make our selection, and you're welcome to bring up things. I think that's the part I'm really trying to get at you here. So if this has been that important to you, why not have called in earlier? We certainly have had phone lines open.
Well, because you always lie and straw man whenever I call in. So I see real no use of it. Your listeners are conservative talk radio listeners who are immune to logic and reason. So as long as I can communicate to you and make you aware of how you're deceiving your followers and keeping them ignorant, that would be good enough to, which I've informed you of this story in the past. This is big time local political news that you're refusing to cover.
Okay, you keep using that word refusing. I don't think you know what that word means in this case, because we're literally talking about it. But in any case here, okay, you keep calling me a liar and all of these other epithets that you love to use here. Let's just put this simply on this issue. Let's just talk about policing and the ideas of the things on them. Where have I been wrong specifically? And not you're promoting or any of these where you're trying to read into issues on it or ascribe values to me that, you don't, let's just say you don't apply your own standards to yourself there. But okay, in the analysis of this and frankly anything else, but let's just stick with police right now because we don't have the full other 2 hours of the show to do that. Where have I been wrong on this? Tell me where I've been incorrect, please.
You've promoted racist right-wing narratives about grassroots effort to
literally when. Name it. Say when I have said this. I would love to know when I have literally said something that is absolutely objectively racist. When have I said that?
No, the racist right-wing narratives about BLM, those were from months ago. I'll reference them later.
Please.
But just recently, the nutcase John Brazelton said, police should be able to violate whatever constitutional rights they want because their job is hard, and you patted them on the back, misusing the Spider-Man quote, with great power comes great responsibility. No, if you respected the Constitution and responsible policing, you would have told him, it's really important for police to respect the constitutional rights of Americans.
So you don't expect police to have great responsibility expected from them? So you're disagreeing with the idea that with great power comes great responsibility. Is that it?
That's one of those vague Barnum effect, could be interpreted any way you want type of comments, whether it be in support of his fascist views or against them. Bottom line is you didn't defend the Constitution and rule of law when John Brazelton said, police should ignore it all, which is the mainstream conservative view and the one that you pander to.
And again, I would love for you to quote me what I said there, since you very much get angry when someone doesn't quote you exactly. Even when I have read exactly what you posted, you get mad at me. So let's just hold yourself to your own standard here, because I believe what I have said, that police, again, have an awesome responsibility and therefore a lot is required from them. And yeah, the 4th and 5th Amendments, among many others on that whole list, are incredibly important, and violations therein are bad things. Let's use simple terms here for you, since you seem to be confused with when I end up talking about things. So yes, police in general should have support, but also held to a high standard, because if they are not performing their duties correctly, that's a bad thing. Does that make sense? Is this laid out for you maybe a little bit better?
In order for them to be actually held to that standard, they have to be informed of the corruption that exists in our police departments, which you in their right-wing echo chamber is sheltering them from, so that they maintain their anti-constitution, anti-rule of law, rainbows and sunshine views of police departments and how they function.
Okay, I know you have a apparently very high opinion of me, as you've labeled me the spokesperson for the rich and powerful in town here, and also having deep insider knowledge of everything going on within the city. And I'm frankly flattered here, but I mean, you heard about it, and you are pretty much constantly on this channel here, as well as others have mentioned this in other ways. So I guess the idea that I'm the only information source that you're also coming to here, I guess I'm also kind of flattered, but let's just say that because we don't mention something explicitly on this show, I mean, there's, again, tons of things that we don't explicitly mention on this show, including a whole lot of other local political things, because we do have only a certain amount of time here. So that's so much to say is that if you want to bring something up, please do. We will discuss it here. But the using it of the, well, you didn't mention this, therefore you're bad, is pretty intellectually bankrupt, because have you attempted to bring it up? Have you attempted to actually do it in a not, oh, by the way, you suck kind of way? Again, this all comes down to a core issue that we keep going back and forth on. If you want to talk about the issues, if you want to talk about the things that are important to you, like apparently policing or the other parts of it are, you're welcome to bring that up. We can have the discussion on it. But if you're coming down to the bad faith conclusion that everyone that disagrees with you is inherently not even just wrong, but evil, then that's not the discussion we're having. We're not talking about the issues. We're talking about your interpretation and the fact that anyone who disagrees with you can only have bad things going on with their mentality with it. The whole idea of ascribing motivation for, again, when you have not even been able to point out where I'm actually factually wrong with the things that I go about here, I'm perfectly willing to correct something if I have been wrong about it. But if you're just saying, well, I don't like the way you went about it, that's what it comes down to. We're going to continue to move on from that, as we have certainly talked about this quite a long here. So appreciate the point in the call for what it's worth. But again, issues, the things that affect us here, let's talk about those more often than not here. We got to take that next break now. So coming out of this break, we do have more calls on the line, and we will get to more of those. But if you want to add your 2 cents, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
I'm Fidel Moreno Mesa with your CBS 4 News Update. New details about a sexual harassment complaint made against El Paso City Representative Joe Molinad have come to light. A woman filed the complaint back in November of last year. In it, she alleges Molinad approached her at the city's Thanksgiving lunch, and last November, according to the report, the woman had several uncomfortable interactions with Molinad. She told an investigator Molinad asked her to dance multiple times, and she claims she told Molinad no several times, at which point he allegedly whispered to her that he was going to direct the city manager to make her dance with him. El Paso County's longtime sheriff Richard Wiles is retiring after 15 years as sheriff and nearly 45 years as a law enforcement officer. Wiles said he will be staying in El Paso after retirement to spend time with his family. Following the announcement by Sheriff Wiles, Commander Ryan Urita announced he would be running to succeed Wiles. For more news headlines, head to our website at cbs4local.com. I'm Fidel Moreno Mesa with your CBS 4 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
El Paso police responding to an injury accident eastbound Paisano at the 110. A disabled vehicle. It's a truck that's blocking the right shoulder on Border Highway westbound at Yarborough. Slow traffic, 54 southbound Stan Roberts to Kenworthy. It's a 14-minute delay, and it's a 7-minute delay on eastbound Montana from Yarborough out to Zaragoza. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery. After seeing our first 80-degree day of the year, we're going to see a milder one for tonight. Most areas around El Paso getting down into the lower 50s. Some lower 40s, though, for you in Las Cruces. So a light jacket or jacket for tomorrow morning. Not quite as warm for tomorrow afternoon. Lower to mid-70s for Thursday, and then back around 81 for your Friday. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by the Ben Ferguson Podcast.
Coming up on the Ben Ferguson Podcast, imagine you're taken hostage in Mexico. What do you think America would do to get you back? Apparently not much. In fact, you're only worth $12,500 in reward. I'll give you the details. Download the Ben Ferguson Podcast now.
Struggling with CPAP? Now there's Inspire, the only FDA-approved obstructive sleep apnea treatment that works inside the body to treat the root cause of sleep apnea with just the click of a button. No mask, no hose, just sleep. Visit InspireSleep.com to learn more.
I'm Martin Hoke, the inventor of Navage Nasal Care, and I love Navage. I've told you about how your nose is the body's air filter, that Navage's powered suction will help flush out allergens, viruses, mucus, and germs, and that Navage will help you breathe better. But what do other people say about Navage? Like Tara, quote, "My doctor wanted me to do saline rinses for my allergies, but I've never been able to successfully use a neti pot. Navage uses suction power, so it's foolproof. There are nights when I'll have particularly bothersome allergies. I'll bust it out, and the results are immediate. It's such a relief. It's become a lifesaver," unquote. She's one of over 100,000 online reviews praising Navage, the all-natural solution trusted by over 3 million people to help you breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier without drugs. Navage is available at Walmart, CVS, Walgreens, Target, Rite Aid, and online. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E, clean nose, healthy life.
Can science fiction bring us closer to God? To find the answer, we're going to follow a prediction by Dilbert cartoonist Scott Adams, one that landed him in the biggest trouble of his career. Second biggest. Listen to Red Pilled America on the iHeartRadio app, Spotify, or wherever you get podcasts. That's Red Pilled America.
This report is sponsored by Red Pilled America.
Freedom of speech lives here.
To me, freedom of speech is being able to say anything you want.
El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM. El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we are up on these days, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. Let me just say it this way. I hold no animosity for any person that has not wronged me, so I'm never mad. So if you want to talk about us and bring up issues, we will certainly do that. But again, we have those dual missions about talking about the things that affect us here in the borderland. Yeah, we relax it a little bit more on Fridays, but discussion about it is certainly one of the big things that we get to here. So if you have things that you want to discuss, you're welcome to bring it up here. If you're saying, well, why have you talked about this and you suck? Okay, it's begging the question and a whole lot of other logical fallacies if you're trying to play that kind of scorecard. So if you want to discuss with us, you're welcome to, but the actual discussion is kind of the most important part of it. And anyway, let's go back to those phone lines here now. We do have Frankie and Messia on the line with us here right now. Frankie, thanks for joining us.
In the words of the great John McEnroe, you cannot be serious. This is insanity. This is beyond the pale of human dimension. And to wit, I speak of what is going on with this nut jobs going on in conservative TV with this upside down logic trying to rewrite history on what happened on January the 6th. Let me tell you something. If George Orwell, the great George Orwell, was still alive today, he'd be embarrassed because he's 40 years short on his great treaties. This is outrageous. Now, the second thing I want to say about that, and good for these gals, there's like 5 or 6 of them, Texas gals, that are suing that nut job Ken Paxton and the rest of the Texas nut jobs out there about their ability to make their own decisions about their bodies. And good for them. And if I was a babe or broad, and I'd be a good-looking one, by the way, too. But I'll tell you what, if I was one, I'd be on that one right there also with them. Good for them. Suit up. Pass off these creeps, these nut job conservative Jesus freak kooks. That's what I want to say.
Okay, a lot getting onto there. I think you're referring to kind of in order of operations here, as long as I'm following the logic. Tucker Carlson, what he was speaking about, and then, yes, the lawsuit. I want to say the Texas Tribune had something out on this. Their article titled Women Denied Abortion Sue Texas to Clarify Exemption to Those Laws. Are those the kind of the two major topics you're mentioning there?
Yes, that's exactly right. Both, I'm trying to get as much into the period of time I can talk to you, so I doubled up on this thing. Yeah, but about the Tucker Carlson guy and these babes, these girls trying to put a lawsuit together to get their rights together, for crying out loud.
Okay, I mean, we'll see how that one ends up moving through. I almost thought you were talking for a second there, because I do believe it's going between the Texas Supreme Court being asked to further article title, just relevant on there, from Ken Paxton directly. Whistleblowers asked Texas Supreme Court to take up case against Ken Paxton over settlement dispute. That one out since we've been on air here, actually, from the Texas Tribune. So separate part of it here, I will say. But the potential, the reason that particularly those abortion potential cases, the ones that are now suing Texas, it's being noted as the first time since these laws have come into place after essentially the overturning of Roe v. Wade, first time that patients directly affected by these new laws have sought to challenge them in court. So there is precedent-setting potentials coming along with it, and so these will certainly be ones interested in this whole sphere of law and operations to watch.
Well, again, and I feel for the women out there that feel that, in my body I have this a baby growing in me, and for some reason or another, things are not working out right medically, and I need to get rid of this baby. Not to be mean about it. And then people that have no idea what the heck's going on with these women are going out and making rules about this woman's body. And I would like to know, everybody out there, all you women out there in the Southwest border region, why don't you chime in to Andrew J. Polk, KTSM 690 on the radio, and chime in what you think about this. For myself as a man, if I was a woman, I would be so I can't say what I want to say, but you know what I want to say.
Thank you for that. I think I get the idea of being incensed on this idea of it here. And so, again, that's why I certainly say that anyone interested in this subject from any angle should probably be pretty closely watching this, because as much as there have been the trigger laws passed both in Texas and in other states that have now come into effect, and there's a whole lot that's been said about the current makeup of the Supreme Court when it comes to the decisions actually being made on this. So these cases percolating through. It probably won't be quick. It probably won't be any time within the next year or two. I would totally expect these will be ones to watch because, of course, this precedent coming through and what will come out of it could not only affect Texas, but the rest of the states in the union as well.
Well, I hear you on that. And I think what's going to happen, because people are so ticked off by 2024 that this is going to be over. The United States of America, normal thinking people, not the nut jobs that listen to Tucker Carlson and foul noise like work, are going to get out there and they're going to stamp their feet on the ground and they're going to say no, flat no. And that's what's going to happen. God bless America and our democratic way of the way that we do things. That's what I'm saying.
All right. Well, appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there.
Okay, Andrew. Take care.
Let me just say this, that this issue, regardless of where individual listener out there may fall on this, it certainly has a lot of power and certainly has a lot of people that have very passionate views on both sides of it. I think that the way it may have been handled, some of the reading about how actually the midterm elections ended up coming out could have been read into the response or the way this is being handled. Personally, where I end up falling on it is that if there are certain things that make natural processes, miscarriage, as much as it is incredibly unfortunate, does happen. It is a thing that can happen even in the natural process, even with any intervention or any activity happening on the parts of any of the people involved. And we start looking at the criminalization of that, that is something that I find unacceptable personally. Anyway, let's I think we have time for one more call on the line here. We do have Martha on the west side here with us right now. Martha, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Andrew. I'll call back on the gentleman that was speaking previously about the police reform and BLM and all that.
Oh, sure.
That was a lot. But
Fair
as
enough.
far as the gentleman from Las Cruces, he made a comment about normal thinking people. And this whole situation with liberals and the administration, they are not normal. Can he please step back and think how normal is mutilation of children? How normal is pedophilia? How normal is saying that a man can have a child? How normal is all of this insanity? And so, step back and just think about it. They focus on one, one area that they're like, that's their hot topic. But he was talking about abortion. It's okay. It's okay to kill a child. I mean, the whole reasoning of it, that is not normal. That's not normal. And so, I don't know how we're going to reach people and think, okay, what about what is right? What about that? What about, a child that has absolutely nothing to do and is sitting in a woman's womb and being murdered? What about that? There's so much to be said about it, but, I don't understand. It's just really hard to understand where people are coming from, because that I forget that gentleman's name. He calls all the time, but really think about it. None of this is normal. And so thank you very much, Andrew. I appreciate the time.
Sure thing. Thank you for the point of the call. Do appreciate it. With that, we're going to end up taking that next break right now. But let me just say this. I mean, beyond the very important issues and perspectives and points that come up on the issues like abortion and kind of everything else that we've referenced in these last two calls here, rapid fire, the whole normal debate. I mean, we've heard that being used back and forth either way within this last year. I want to say there were some specific speeches, that one before the Liberty Bell and Independence Hall, actually, that President Biden gave, and then the rebuttal to the State of the Union that came out recently from now Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders on this, trying to brand each other side of it as not normal. I guess, I mean, sure, there's a lot of perspective and people may agree with that one way or the other, but okay, personally, just on that, not on anything else you were mentioning there, that just trying to say like, well, they're weird and therefore we can't talk with them. I find myself opposed to. It's like a milder form of the, opposition destroyed by statements from the people I agree with, this kind of things. Anything that doesn't actually lend itself to like discussing these issues, the incredibly important ones, which I fully agree with you on that aspect of saying that this is important, this needs to be discussed, and what is good, what is right, what do we want our society to look like. That's what I prefer these discussions end up going on, because just going into, they're all crazy, we don't have to deal with them. I don't like the long-term implications that have, but I appreciate getting your perspective on this. I'm not trying to pick on our previous caller there at all. Just one thing that gets me, the way it has been seemingly more discussed, and something I think we need to think about is how do we go, and what we try to do on this program is to talk about the issues and actually talk about what they are, and not just and if you disagree with me, you're wrong in any way. There is certainly wrong and right out there. It is not all relative. But making sure we're actually talking about it and helping to, again, I don't expect that we create and force build consensus on this program, but the idea of it, at least one that I'd like to approach. Anyway, we got to take that next break right now. Coming out of this, we'll tell you what we got coming up for you on the program, so stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 eastbound starting to slow down partially because of a multi-vehicle accident blocking the right lane. I-10 eastbound at Lee Trevino exit. Expect 12-minute delays from Cotton Street to Lee Trevino, I-10 eastbound. Northbound on the 54 Patriot at Alameda Avenue, a disabled vehicle's blocking the right lane. And it's stop and go on Global Reach southbound from the Spur down to Montana with 25-minute delays. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Ben Ferguson Podcast.
Coming up on the Ben Ferguson Podcast, imagine you're taken hostage in Mexico. What do you think America would do to get you back? Apparently not much. In fact, you're only worth $12,500 in reward. I'll give you the details. Download the Ben Ferguson Podcast now.
Do you have over $10,000 in credit card debt? The stress from excessive credit card debt can ruin your life. Collection calls, sleepless nights. If you're feeling the financial impact with unprecedented economic challenges, DebtBlue is here for you. DebtBlue uses secret programs that most credit card companies won't tell you about. They'll help you consolidate or settle your debts for a fraction of what you owe. With DebtBlue's Success Guarantee, you pay nothing unless your debt is reduced or completely resolved. There's no risk. The more you owe, the more DebtBlue can save you. See how easy it is to get started with free information. Let DebtBlue show you how 10 minutes could save you thousands. Call now. 800-375-1158. That's 800-375-1158.
I'm just living sky high right now. I'm very thankful for it. And the team at DebtBlue are phenomenal. They're able to work with you. They're great.
Call for your free debt resolution information now. 800-375-1158. 800-375-1158.
This is a special alert to all Americans who own a vehicle with less than 200,000 miles with an auto warranty about to expire or with no warranty coverage at all. Due to a decline in the economy, CarShield is announcing a low-cost month-to-month vehicle protection plan that is now available to the public to save any driver out-of-pocket expenses on future auto repairs. Call now to find out how you can pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. Yes, you heard that correctly. Pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. An open phone line has been established for all drivers to call for a free quick quote. Call 800-989-8906 now. Drivers who are covered will not have to pay for covered repairs again. This protection plan is at an all-time low. Additionally, drivers who activate this vehicle protection today will also receive free roadside assistance, free towing, and car rental options at no additional cost. Call us for your free quick quote today. 800-989-8906. That's 800-989-8906. What do you have to lose? Call 800-989-8906. Again, 800-989-8906.
For more than 45 years, the El Paso Community Foundation has worked with individuals and nonprofits to address the unique opportunities and challenges in our vibrant multicultural community. Every dollar goes to bettering our region. For more information about the foundation, establishing a fund of your own, or giving to an existing fund or project, go to epcf.org. That's epcf.org. For good, for El Paso, forever.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for having joined us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. I do want to thank everyone that did tune in, call in, comment, participate in any way on the show here, because seriously, if you're wanting to talk about the things that affect us here in the borderland, I mean, if you just want to scream at someone because you don't like their perspective or what you think their perspective is, there's literally functionally infinite places online to go and do that. But as we will continue to do so, if you want to talk about the stuff here, the issues, those very important things, we'll continue doing that every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. So a couple of things we're working on for you, as I've mentioned, as we got a lot more discussion, the idea of, customer service and the availability of it for, local utilities, certainly important, as well as that whole smart meter conversation, and even the idea of, machine learning, AI, the whole revolution, and those parts of it, all stuff in the works for you, as well as, of course, focus on what we got going on in the state legislature. We only really scratched the surface on that today, so we'll probably focus a little bit more on that as we get further into this week and, of course, in future ones. So until our next shows, we are on every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. Until then, until next time, I want you all to stay safe out there, look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 eastbound starting to slow down partially because of a multi-vehicle accident blocking the right lane. I-10 eastbound at Lee Trevino exit. Expect 12-minute delays from Cotton Street to Lee Trevino, I-10 eastbound. Northbound on the 54 Patriot at Alameda Avenue, a disabled vehicle's blocking the right lane. And it's stop and go on Global Reach southbound from the Spur down to Montana with 25-minute delays. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
when your back pain is your foot's fault. This is Dean's story.
It was affecting me when I walked, which is a kind of a common activity.
Dean's chronic back pain had become a pain in the you-know-what.
At first, I just sort of ignored it, but eventually everything catches up to you.
Physically and mentally.
Back pain affects your mood. It really does.
But that's not the only connection Dean made.
A friend of mine suggested I go to the Good Feet store. I was a little confused. Why would I need a foot store? My feet are fine.
But he thought, what the heck? He had nothing to lose.
They took impressions of my feet, and with the footprint, they were able to get me a personalized arch support that lifted pressure off my back.
So the source of your back pain was right under your toes.
It's something maybe I should have known, but I found out in the nicest possible way.
See how arch supports work for you with a free fitting. Find your Good Feet store at goodfeet.com.
Airway Boulevard at I-10.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
Text and work. Text and pretend to work. Text and act surprised when someone calls you out for not working.
Who, me?
Text and whatever, just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. Keeping you informed and up to date. El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM. News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. Police in Louisville, Kentucky discriminate against black people.
Louisville